And welcome back, everybody. We're chatting with Emily Torres, talking about Marian Apparitions and apologetics. And, Emily, when you proposed this, I was thrilled because we haven't really explored that on the show. And quite frankly, I mean, I have used Fatima for apologetics and hostile witnesses. I make that a case for Catholicism. But I never thought of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So that's really intriguing.
Yeah. I think Our Lady of Guadalupe and then Our Lady of Lourdes they're like my two go-to. I think just because Our Lady of Lourdes, especially when you're conversing with like atheists or agnostics, there's been a lot of medical and scientific journals that have reviewed some of the cures and healing cases that have come out of Our Lady of Lourdes. And so from more of like an empirical standpoint in some capacity, which, agnostic and atheists tend to be more partial towards, that is a way to get conversation going, at least from my experience, what I've found with them. So yeah, they're both very interesting. And I think different apparitions are beneficial for whatever, viewpoint the person you're speaking with is coming from.
Yeah, that's true. So you're studying cognitive and behavioral neuroscience, which, by the way, just saying that is pretty impressive. Does that fit in at all? I mean, does that give you any special insights into, whether these are frauds or hoaxes?
I try to refrain from, especially because I don't have my degree yet, from acting as if that makes me have, special insight. But
no, I know. But does it pair at all with it? I mean, or is that just a completely different line of study?
I think that it could in some capacity. I think that maybe like a more psychological approach is probably what some people would want to hear from, just because, I don't know, there's a lot of people who think like people are more inclined to believe certain things over others because of certain, psychological backgrounds that they're coming from, and that kind of conditions them to be more receptive to certain beliefs over another. So I would say, neuroscience is not particularly aligned with something like this, but I appreciate
I was just
that.
Curious. It's very impressive line of study. So I was just wondering if it would pair at all, because for example, for the resurrection, you'll have atheists who will say that this is like some sort of, what do I want to say? Not like hallucination, but something even more than that, like some sort of mental, difficulty or something like that, that they thought they saw the Jesus, but actually it was just a blip on some, neuron or something. I don't know. Yeah. Our Lady of Lourdes, you got that veridical data going. And you also, and then you have Fatima as well, just from the sheer amount of witnesses in the miracle of the sun. And that pairs in too, because Mary says, I am the Immaculate Conception.
Yeah, no, I think Our Lady of Fatima is interesting for a lot of reasons, even the secrets, right, that she revealed, and, the references to World War I, World War II, or possibly, right? I think that's something very fascinating. It's not something that I've looked into as much as I'd probably like to. But yeah, I think that's also, especially because it's so recent compared to some of the other ones, like, Our Lady of Guadalupe's 16th century. So, that could be a good one to propose to certain people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We even have photographs of, not the miracle itself, but the people who witnessed it. So it was in newspapers and stuff. Yeah, for a non-Catholic, for a Protestant, what was the typical pushback that you got when you asked, what do you make of this apparition stuff?
I'm not too sure that I've ever really heard someone voice, like I've made videos about it, but I've not really heard someone voice a strong opinion about what their thoughts are. Maybe they just don't know what to think. But yeah, I mean, I don't find too many people who are willing to kind of bite the bullet and say, yeah, the Catholic Church is from Satan. And of course, Satan just, converted pagans, Aztec pagans from one type of demonic view to another demonic view.
Right.
I mean, I have heard people say that, but I think more often than not, they don't want to say that because they kind of think it's silly, which is fair. So yeah, I don't know, I guess mixed feelings from people, but I do think it's something I should press more. I don't think I've really, pressed someone to give me an answer on what they think of it. But maybe I should, because, I think it's something that does, make you think pretty hard about your view of the Catholic Church, when a lot of people just try to not take a view at all about it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The pushback I always got was, Jesus says that there will be signs and wonders so great to deceive, if it were possible, even the elect,
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is a great wonder. So it obviously must be part of the deception, right? But then it occurred to me, well, that means Satan's against Satan, right? Because like you said with Guadalupe, this conversion from pagans to Catholicism, well, Catholicism's against paganism. So what, Satan's against Satan? How could the kingdom stand?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a great point. And then, yeah, they either have to concede that, or they have to say, well, Catholicism is just paganism masked with some Christian influences. So, and a lot of people online, at least, can say things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the answer they respond with.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's always a million of them. So you're on social media, you're doing apologetics. So your sense is that there really isn't that big of a pushback? Because, even in some areas of Protestantism, there's that they believe that miracles ceased after the first centuries of the church. So all miracles are either fraudulent or demonic. But you don't find that much on social media?
Oh, no, I haven't really run into people who are like that. I think it's more of the opposite, where they tend to think that things that aren't miracles are, and I don't know. I mean, I guess some people, they would just say, well, God can work miracles in every church, which, is fair, is true. But maybe that's more of the response they give. And I guess they just start thinking too hard of well, what is this, accepting this miracle of Our Lady appearing, what does that say then about Mary's significance? Maybe they just aren't thinking too hard about the implications of conceding that it is a true miracle. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's so they could say, well, yeah, this is God, he works miracles in all churches. So there's nothing really, driving about this particular one that would drive you into Catholicism or some other church, which of course isn't true, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't really see I haven't heard of any Protestant miracles where 9 million people are converting.
Yeah, right.
And I think this is actually St. Francis de Sales in the Catholic Controversy. I don't know. Is that his book?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think he actually, or no, that's not. St. Francis de Sales. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I haven't read it. I want to on my reading list. That's too extensive. But I believe he mentions here one of the arguments he gives against Protestantism is, where the miracles of the reformers happening, when you see God coming in after a long period of what seems desolation. And I mean, if you are following what the reformers believed, right, who were so staunchly against mandated clerical celibacy, they were against the sacrifice of the Mass, and a lot of these things, which by the time of the early 400s was a universal, thing happening in the church, and a belief in the church, then you would have to say Christ, was letting his church for 1100 years practice things widely that were from the Antichrist, were blasphemous, were sacrilegious. And now that, the reformers are coming in and uprooting this, that's a big deal. And where are their miracles to show that they are really from God and they're, doing the right thing? that's in alignment with scripture, right? With what we see the prophets coming and pushing back against a long consensus of mispractice and false beliefs. And the Protestants don't have the miracles on their side. Where are they? You know, I haven't heard of any huge ones, you know? So I do think that this conversation of miracles generally is good for bringing up with Protestants to reflect on.
Yeah. Really good points. Especially if you believe that Jesus, I mean, the scripture says that the teaching of the apostles is confirmed through accompanying signs, right? So miracles happen to show the truth of what's being taught. And then you have the historic church that has abundance of miracles, usually attached to, you know, like Eucharistic miracles, right? All of a sudden they don't attest that they're from God. You know, where do you draw the line where suddenly God kind of flips and it's no longer evidence?
Exactly. Yeah, I think the line's very blurry for them to distinguish, and it's a problem in my opinion. It's a huge problem, actually. Yeah.
Great points, because and I love that argument from St. Francis de Sales, and that's what led some of the reformers to start becoming skeptical about miracles, and ultimately the skepticism feeds into the Enlightenment and the denial that, well, if miracles don't happen today, who's to say they happened 2,000 years ago, right? So maybe it's all just a myth. I know. Yeah. I hear the music coming up, Emily. We'll hit pause right there. We are chatting with Emily Torres of Catholic-Converts.com, talking about Marian apparitions and apologetics.